18a. And yesterday we had a few questions. Number one, we wanted to understand what it meant. The verse says, Lo yeg la rosh cheref oisehu, that it says that if a person is not supposed to walk in a cemetery with tefillin on his head, holding a Sefer Torah and learning. And the verse that tells us why is a verse in Mishlei, in the book of Proverbs. It says, he who mocks the poor blasphemes his creator. So why is he considered, so a dead person is considered poor because they cannot fulfill any mitzvahs. So by doing a mitzvah there, you are mocking the poor, meaning mocking the dead. But what is that? How does that affect Hashem? Cheref oisehu, you're blaspheming his creator. So the explanation I saw from the Maharsha is that if you mock the dead, what you're basically saying is that Hashem obviously doesn't see everything that happens. So therefore, if a person mocks the dead, he's blaspheming Hashem and claiming that Hashem doesn't see and is not going to punish him. So that answers that question. I just wanted it to be more understandable, the full intent of that verse. Okay, so then we also mentioned about the tefillin yesterday, that it only mentions the head tefillin. And I mentioned that it had to do with the fact that the hand tefillin is generally covered. And I saw in the commentaries, they mentioned that it's the hand tefillin, the arm tefillin is covered, and even the ritzuos, even the straps of the arm tefillin would need to be covered in the cemetery. And then the other thing that we mentioned, that the Gemara yesterday that we learned, that when a person does the shmira, when a person is a shomer, a watcher, he does the watching for the deceased, which is one of the mitzvahs that is done after someone passes away, is they have someone, until the burial, they have someone be a shomer, be a watch. They stand there and guard the body, and in a certain sense, it's an honor or a protection. And so we mentioned that what is the specific reason for it? And I mentioned that we will see a hint for it in the Gemara. So the Gemara that we learned yesterday, we mentioned that when a person is a shomer, so he is exempt from all the mitzvahs. And if you have two shomers, if there were two of them, so the law, it was that one of them says Shema, and the other one is watching the deceased, and then they switch off, and the other one can say the Shema, and while the one who originally said Shema now can be watching the deceased. And then the brisa that we quoted said an opinion of Ben Azai. Does anyone know what Ben Azai said yesterday? It was at the end of our class. We mentioned the opinion of Ben Azai. He's talking about a shomer, people watching the deceased, and he said an opinion. Anyone remember Ben Azai's opinion? The first opinion was that they should switch off. One says Shema, the other one...
The voice is breaking up.
My voice, oh, I'm sorry. The whole time my voice was breaking up?
No.
And also the screen
No, not all
going
the
up and
time,
down.
but it was.
Just now. Okay, let me mute everyone. And then whoever wants to say anything can unmute themselves. If someone's on a telephone, you could press *6 and you can unmute yourself. Okay, so the opinion of Ben Azai, can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Is it good now?
Yeah,
Clear? Okay.
Yeah.
So the opinion of Ben Azai is that he mentions that if they're on a boat, so they could leave the deceased in one corner and they could pray in the other corner. So what that sounds like is he's arguing on the first opinion. The first opinion emphasized that they would switch off. And Ben Azai says, well, on a boat, they don't have to switch off. They could both recite the prayers at the same time and leave the deceased in the other corner. So the Gemara asked, what's the difference between these two opinions? Why would one rabbi, the first opinion, hold that you need to switch off? And why would the other rabbi, Ben Azai, why would he say that, no, you don't have to switch off. You could both, if it's in a boat, you don't have to switch off. You could both recite the prayers at the same time and it's no problem. So the Gemara answered that the difference of these opinions was based on the practicality of having mice in on a boat. Is it common for mice to be on a boat? One says we are concerned that there are mice on a boat.
Yes.
And the other one says, no, we're not concerned about that.
There are mice on boats.
Of course.
Well, nowadays we have these huge ships that are like,
I'm sorry.
people bring all their, I don't know how many suitcases people bring when they go on these cruises. And who knows, if mice are brought along, somehow somehow the mice found, come on the ship. I'm not sure in the olden days if it was as common.
Rabbi, is achbarim rats as opposed to mice? And the reason why I ask is because they still do it now on the mooring lines to big ships. They have these round plates that are perpendicular to the mooring line as a way of deterring rats from boarding the ship using mooring lines, and that's still common. That's still being done.
Right.
I need to interrupt, okay, because I have seen river rats that are almost as big as a cat. Okay, so for me, and I've seen them here in Miami by Biscayne Bay. So to me, those little things, those things that they have, those darn things can jump over those round things and get onto the ship. Okay. I'm not saying anything against rats or big rats or whatever. I'm just saying that I have seen some things here in Miami with reference to rats and water that are unbelievable. So, I mean, I understand. I'm not trying to contradict the gentleman. Yes, Ezra, not at all. Those things maybe work with mice, but not with some of the larger, and they still have issues, and they still put those huge black or whatever colored boxes, especially where they know they can hide.
So this is an interesting discussion. I'm not so familiar with the ships. I always tell my wife when we get 65 or after the kids are married, we'll be able to take some cruises. But in the meantime, so I'm not so familiar what goes on these cruise ships. But it's interesting that both of you mentioned that it seems common for there to be mice and rats on
Yes.
ships, and so I wonder how we're going to explain the other opinion. In other words, the general understanding of such a Gemara is, just one second, Ben. The general understanding of this type of a Gemara is that it's rare to have mice on ships, on boats. But there's a small
About the kind of boats. from the olden times.
In the olden times we're talking about.
Yes,
And there is a small chance that there is. And one rabbi says we have to be concerned about that small chance. And the other rabbi says we don't have to be so concerned about that small potential issue. So that's the way you would generally read this Gemara. And the only thing is the way the practical views that I'm hearing over here, the ones that have seen things, it seems like you're saying it is very common for there to be mice or rats on ships, and therefore, what would the other opinion? Why would he not be concerned about that? Why would the other opinion? So the only thought I have is like what Susan is saying, that maybe in the olden ships it was different. Maybe there were smaller boats, and maybe they made the walls of the ships higher. Or it was, I don't know if it was. So you're saying that they live in the water. There are mice or rats.
there's water. They
in-
are
in the deep.
they are always by the rock areas. They're always looking for food. They are huge. And
So
they
the
are
issue would be when it's at dock, when
Yes.
it's docked, they would come in, not while it's traveling.
right.
Right.
When
So
the-
I'm
when the
guessing,
ship is docked, correct.
right. So I'm guessing that maybe when it was a small ship, a small boat, so they would obviously get rid of it before they left. When it was a big ship, then they could hide in many different places.
Right.
That would be my thought to answer
I
your
mean,
question.
to leave the body out on a stretcher, not protected, to me is awful.
Right. Okay. So the question is, why? What is the reason for being a shomer? Why do we have a shomer? What is the reason of having a shomer for a deceased
That's
person?
the physical-
Why is what is the purpose of this shomer? So according to this Gemara, what do you think the reason is?
You have to protect the body
From what?
That's
from anything physical or anything spiritual, both.
Anyone else?
shading,
What is that?
shading.
Okay, so we have demons. We have anything physical or spiritual. Anyone else want to just say maybe there's one specific thing that we are concerned about that our Gemara seems to spell out?
Hello, Rabbi?
Yep.
Theft of the body.
What is that?
The body
Maybe,
being stolen.
maybe that the body will be used as food for
Oh!
certain
Oh,
live things.
Okay,
That
just
could
one
be
second, Ben.
found on a
Moshe, I could not hear you. Say that one more time, Moshe.
That the body might be stolen.
That the body might be stolen. Okay. And what did you say,
I
Ben?
said they
That
have
it
to
might be
watch the
eaten.
body that
It might be eaten. Is that what you said, Ben?
they have to watch the body that it does. I'm trying to say it. They're supposed to watch the body so it doesn't become food for whatever life matter is found on the ship, whether it's an animal or a smaller thing.
So what I was hoping someone would answer is mice. Our Gemara clearly spells out that it's mice. That's what we are concerned about. The Gemara says that on a ship, one opinion is they don't have to worry because on a ship he's not worried about mice. Which means that the purpose of being a shomer is for mice. Now, at the same time, I will tell you that. So some of you hinted to that by saying we're concerned about physical things. We're concerned about it'll be eaten. The body will be eaten or stolen. But so it does. You're not wrong. It's fitting into the category that the mice will eat, will desecrate the body. Now, now even the idea of demons is not wrong as well. There is one opinion that I saw brought down that it says we're not worried about physical mice. We're worried about spiritual mice. In other words, demons, type of ruach ra'ah. Chborim is it's sort of like a term that it seems like it, according to that opinion. So so you're all correct. But the simple understanding is we're talking about physical mice, and and that's the purpose of being a shomer, is basically to guard the body that the mice will not come there. And therefore, on a boat that we're talking about here, one of the opinions is that we don't need to be watching because we're not worried about mice. Now, the commentaries over here ask a very strong question. Ben Azai mentioned this law about a boat. He doesn't say on a boat you do not need to be a shomer. He says when you have two, they could go to the other corner and leave the body in one corner. And they go to the other corner and pray. It would have been more logical for the opinion of Ben Azai to be stated earlier on when it said that the person who watches the deceased, he is exempt from Shema. It should say that a person who's on a ship, who's watching the deceased on a ship, is not exempt from Shema. It would seem to fit better. Why does he have to talk specifically about a case of two people and then say both can go and pray, instead of saying the main point, which is that on a ship we're not really worried for mice, and therefore let the shomer on a ship is not, doesn't have to be as careful, can go and pray, is not exempt. You should have said it initially, not just when there's two people, then you don't have to. So that's one of the questions the commentaries ask over here. And both answers that are given are they're two answers that I saw given, and both of them have a very important element in halacha. One of the answers that's given, very interesting, says that you see from here that there is a special inyan, there's a unique opportunity to daven, even if you don't have a minyan, but you have more than one person, you should daven together. And he says that's why Ben Azai mentions this when there's two people, that both of them should go together and daven, even though you don't have a minyan, because the more people that are davening together, even without a minyan, there is a concept of Hashem liking their prayer better. This is a very innovative idea, and I can't tell you that it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, but one of the commentaries does mention it, and according to that, it explains a little why the opinion of Ben Azai is mentioned when it comes to the case of two people. Yes, Yehuda.
But then no one is watching the body.
So no one is watching. No one watching the body is because we're not concerned on a ship about mice. Even if there was one person, he can go and pray. The same law applies whether it's two people or one people. Either two people can go and pray or one person can go and pray. He doesn't have to stay constantly with the body. He can go and pray. It's not a problem. What do you mean? He's supposed to be a shomer. The shomer is for mice. On a boat, there's no mice, or it's rare to have mice, or he doesn't have to be there constantly.
And what about the Yetzirah on a ship?
You mean the
Come on.
demon?
Bye-bye.
You're talking about the evil, the bad spirits.
Yes.
So that's the opinion of Ben Azai, that he's not concerned about bad spirits on the ship, because on the water there's no bad spirits, and the ship itself doesn't have. So on the deceased, he's not concerned, because it's not common for there to be bad spirits there. Again, we don't know anything about spirits, so we have to rely on the Talmud. And people who say they know, they feel the spirits, you have to be worried about them. So we have to trust the rabbis of the Talmud about the bad spirits, because, Okay, Ben, you had a question, Ben?
I wanted to say, what is the reason there would be two guards on a boat? The reason would be that one would relieve the other, and the other one can either go and pray, or you can go to the bathroom, and one is guarding. Otherwise, why should there be two on a boat, not one?
Yeah, it does. Your answer, I don't know if it applies, because Ben Azai is saying that they don't need to watch the deceased. They could both go and
Then
pray.
why is there two?
Okay, that's a good question, but the answer doesn't answer it.
The point, it really doesn't matter, because you can ask the same question on land.
No, on land, you have to let somebody, give him a break. You have to, if you're gonna give him a break on the boat, fine, but they shouldn't both leave the same time.
But the opinion on the boat was Ben Azai, who says that they both can leave at the same time, because there's no need for them to switch off, because there are no mice on the ship. So that's why. Yes, Ruvain. Ruvain's been quietly and patiently waiting. We'll come back to that. Yes, Ruvain.
So I'm wondering, in those days, they certainly had plenty of mice. You can see from the plague that spread throughout Europe. I would imagine that, I didn't see this anywhere, but I would imagine that a smart captain of a ship would have plenty of cats on board, and to take care of a mouse problem.
Oh,
They
that's a good point.
Plenty of varmints and vermin,
Okay, good point. Good point. Okay, I like that. Yes, thank you, Ruvain, for adding an important point. Yes, Yehuda.
So, according to this rabbi, why do you need a shomer at all on a ship?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's what I'm saying.
Why do you ever need a shomer on a ship? Why doesn't he just say there's no need for a shomer? So this is the story. So there's another explanation of the shomer from the Igros Moshe. Moshe Feinstein. He says that the point is that on a ship, you don't need a constant shmira, but you need to be yoytze v'nichnas. You need to go in and out. You need to be able to pop in and out. And the reason for it is not for mice, but it's for honor. And or not to be a bizoyon, not to be an embarrassment for the deceased. So that's why, in other words, the idea of mice is not the only reason. It's also as a idea of honor, but because of honor, you really, it's enough to go in and out, that you're not leaving the mace with no one, indefinitely, but instead you pop in and out. And what Ben Azai is saying is that if you have the two people, they both could go and daven at the same time. They could both leave at the same time, because you don't really need this watching. You don't need the continuous watching that would be necessary if there were mice around. When there are mice around, you need constant watching. When there's not mice around, then it's just a popping in and out that's necessary. And what he says is that would it be appropriate for them to leave even if they have nothing important to do? is it that they have to have an excuse to leave, like something important, or could they just go whenever they want and pop in and out? And he says, well, you see that from this story that they both could go daven at the same time, even though really, logically, there's no need for that. There's no need for them to both go daven at the same time, because really one could go daven and the other one could watch it and the other one. So what you see from here is that they're allowed to leave even in a preferable way, meaning there's no real necessity for them to constantly watch the deceased. One could, if it's on a ship, there is it's not an issue of mice, and it's only an issue of, according to that opinion, it's not an issue of mice. It's only an issue of kavod, and there, even if they have want to get a phone call, they could leave and then come back if it's just to pop in and out. So that's the opinion of the Igros Moshe, which argues with the earlier opinion. The earlier opinion I said holds there's a reason to daven two people together. The Igros Moshe doesn't say that at all. He says you don't really have a need to daven two people together. And the only reason it's saying that they both go daven together is because to show you that you don't have to have a good valid reason to leave. Even if you don't have a valid reason, like to just go daven together with your friend, even though there's no need for such a thing, you can do that. And it's not a necessity to have a continuous shomer.
Rabbi, does the Torah teach how to prepare a body for burial?
There are traditions about the preparing the body for burial. Yeah. Robert. Yeah.
Please. Yeah. Thank you. Susan just raised the question that I had is, I'm confused between the role of the Chevra Kadisha, when I understand that there's always somebody witnessing the body after they're dead, versus all of a sudden we have a shomer. And why do we then not need to overlook the body? And so to me, that's contradiction in terms or some confusion, because I would think that even though our body is our shell, it's the physicality, it's the manifestation of who we are. And even though our neshama is being lifted, but it's still us. So I'm confused about why we have these two different definitions, and why, if I'm correct in understanding what a Chevra Kadisha does, that there's somebody that's always there with the deceased to guard it or to keep it company because of who we were when we were living. So I don't know, I'm confused, but maybe you can, hopefully you'll enlighten me.
Okay, sure. So the Chevra Kadisha, their job is to deal with the deceased in all matters. And they arrange for a shomer. They arrange for the tahara. Okay. They arrange for the thing. So that's the group that makes all those arrangements is the Chevra Kadisha. Now, the idea of a shomer, which you're seeing as the purpose is that they're supposed to be there 24/7. Our Gemara tells us that it's not exactly as you're thinking. The main purpose seems to be for mice. That was the main purpose, that it became traditional to have a shomer. And this side purpose seems to be as an honor that they're not left, until the burial. Not that they're not left by themselves, because they can be left by themselves, but not continuously. They can be temporarily left themselves for a half hour here, or so on. But the main purpose of the shomer, believe it or not, was because in the olden days there were mice that would that they were mainly concerned about. And the truth is, in New York and in Florida, the mice are in abundance, so we can relate to that.
Rabbi, then if that's the case, then why wasn't it discussed about the mice at the start of this part of the Gemara? Why doesn't it say that you should worry about mice, or that you should worry about things coming and nibbling at the okay, just calm down. All right, my point here is that they only bring mice when they talk about boats. The entire from the flow of what's being discussed over here is, number one, we start talking about one shomer. And then somebody says, okay, so if there's more than one shomer, you do this. And then Ben Ezai comes along and says, on a boat, this is what we would do. All right. So
Yeah,
the
you're asking
flow-
a good question. The only thing is that the question would be a strong question if the Brisa started off saying the reason for Shmira is honor. The reason for Shmira is to show that we never, if it said a different reason, it doesn't say any reason. So you can't, you can't say, well, it can't be because of mice because it didn't say any reason in the first place. So it's not. You know what I mean? If it said a reason in the first place, then I would say, yeah, you got a good point that there must be a different, the other reason is the main reason. But here it's not telling us any reason. The only thing is, it doesn't even tell us in the end what the reason is. It's only when they're explaining the two views, the Gemara says the explanation of the difference between the two views is mice. The Brisa didn't say any reason at all. Didn't tell us the reason of being a shomer. The Gemara is explaining that the difference between the reasons, which ends up giving us a little understanding of what the reason is.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that I think the magic word that Ben Azai is saying is he doesn't say he doesn't need a shomer. He says they're both leaving to pray, which indicates that they're both going to go, but they're not going to have a dinner and a couple of beers, and they're going to disappear for an hour and a half. They're going to go for a short period of time, and they're coming back. That's what, and it's going for a somewhat important reason. It's not just going to, for them both to leave the mace with no shomer, and they're just going to go out for dinner.
But it's not such an important reason
Why
because
didn't they
one
do
could
it one at
stay.
a time?
One could stay and go pray after the other one. So it's not
Right.
that of an important reason.
Right, but the fact that it says to leave, it doesn't say to leave, it just says to leave to pray indicates there's a special kind of leaving and there's a special kind of return, which is going to be shortly, as opposed to a long break.
Well, if it said mincha, I would say it's pretty short. If it's talking about shachris, I wouldn't call that exactly short. I mean, it takes a good, even if you don't have a minyan, it takes a good half hour to daven shachris. And if you put Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, you have another 5-10 minutes over there. So it's not a, I don't know if you want to call it short. It doesn't say short or long. It says you go daven. So
If you went out for a meal, and a couple drinks, that's an hour and a half. They're not saying the guys can disappear for an hour and a half. It says that they can go to pray, which indicates a shorter period of time, I would think. Otherwise, why would he
On
say
a
the word to
boat,
pray?
you don't
Why
go
did he
out
just say?
to eat. You sit down and eat.
Why would he say the word pray? He would just say they can go
On
to
a
one
boat, you
corner
don't
and
go
the mace is
anywhere
in the
to
other
eat.
corner. Why even bring in praying?
Well, I think you have a point that,
Not
there
in
must
those
be
days
some
when they
type
go
of
out.
time limit. There must be some type of time limit that's called that either fits within the category of yotzei v'nichnas or doesn't fit in the category of yotzei v'nichnas. In other words, how long would that be? What is the time limit? So I think you have a point of it that, in other words, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm going to leave for an hour and a half now or 3 hours or something like that. But the fact that it uses the term tefillah, I don't know if that's surprising because that's what we are talking about the exemption from davening, that here there is no exemption. But it's not emphasizing the obligation of Shmira and how limited. In other words, the main point is to tell you that here you're obligated in davening. I think that would be maybe the main reason why it talks about davening. Okay, well, I've really gone over time.